Am I the butthole for yelling at my parents that their polyamory effed up my childhood? Edit. To all of you who messaged me to tell me about how effing great polyamory is and that you're mad I gave it a bad name, you have issues if that's what you take away from this post. I believe it started when I was around 6 years old. My parents often had friends over in the house. I didn't know they were polyamorous, of course. One day I was outside playing, got hurt, and when I ran inside caught my parents making out with some random guy. They told me they have other adults that they love and it's a completely normal thing. Me being a child just accepted that. They gave up being secretive and their partners would constantly be around, even joining on outings. I remember that on my 10th birthday they invited 3 of their partners, one of who I'd never seen before, and for the rest of the day my parents just withdrew from my party and hung out with them. I never saw them doing anything explicit again, but they would kiss their partners, hug them, make flirty comments, something that would be normal between parents but with many more people. Sometimes I came home from school and my parents were gone and there was some random adult in our house. Some of them seemed surprised that my parents even had a child. I always hated it, but since my parents had told me this was normal, I assumed many adults probably did similar things and that it's just an adult thing all kids hate. Later they had less partners and eventually seemed to stop. Not that I know for sure because I moved out with 17. I didn't think about it anymore. A year ago I started therapy, other reasons. As usual, the topic of my upbringing came up and it brought back many feelings I wasn't aware of. I realized that although my parents were always good to me, I had never really felt close to any of them and still have a lot of resentment that they made me feel like I had to compete for my parents' attention with random strangers. A while ago, I visited them and they told me they are going to take part in a documentary about polyamorous families and that the producers would like to include interviews with the children, so they would love if I could agree and tell everyone that polyamory doesn't mess kids up. All my resentment bubbled up and I said that I cannot agree because I would not be able to say anything positive. My parents looked shocked. I had never brought this up before, and asked why, and I unloaded all that I always felt pushed aside. We barely had any family time without strangers intruding. It turned into an argument and I became loud and yelled that the truth is it did F me up and they shouldn't have had a child if their number one priority was effing the whole world. My mother cried and my father said I should probably leave. So I left and was shaken up for the rest of the week, but also felt regret because I've never made my mom cry before. Later my father sent me a message that was like, "We are sorry you feel that way, can we have a calm discussion about this soon?" Even though I tried to, it's like I can't reply. This argument brought something very emotional up in me. Am I the butthole for hurting my parents over this, especially since I have never brought it up before? NTA, do not back down and allow them to get you to recant, op. Notice that they said "we're sorry you feel this way," not "we're sorry for doing XYZ. They gave you a non-apology. For making your childhood basically a wallflower to an orgy, no less. Edit, this blew up like Coke and Mentos, thank you kind strangers. What sort of parent allows their kid to come home alone to a stranger in the house that didn't even know the kid existed? Good to me my ass, that's horrible parenting. Don't forget inviting numerous strangers that they were effing at the time to ops' birthday parties and then completely neglecting original post on their birthday so that they could go F whoever they wanted at the time. These parents are atrocious and neglectful at best. I'd argue even worse. Forgetting just that F up, a lot of them didn't even know they had a kid, and the parents left them in the house, alone, and let original post just find some random person in the home. They're lucky one of them didn't seriously hurt up. This doesn't sound like polyamory either, it sounds like swinging. From my understanding, polyamory is based on relationships, not swinging. Notice no one mentioned that. Yeah, that's exactly what it sounds like. They're using the term polyamory wrong. If you're polyamorous, you're in a close relationship. There's one couple in my polycule who have a kid. We were all friends before they joined, and their kid knows everyone in the polycule as their aunt/uncle. We're not unfamiliar strangers that have no clue that the two of them have a kid. Edit, so this is my first gold. Huh. I'm glad an actual poly person is here to chime in. The whole time I read this post I was thinking there are so many ways to be poly and also a good parent. This is not one of them. This reminds me of stories people have about divorced parents prioritizing their dating life over their kids. It kind of makes me sick. That's exactly what it sounds like. Because the parents here have cared more about having orgasms than being parents. I hope original post does speak in that documentary about what not to do as a polyamorous parent, because their parents deserve to have everyone know how disgusting they were to their kid. This is what I was thinking. I don't think the polyamory itself was harmful, but the parents prioritizing their sex life over their child is gross and neglectful. Yes, I agree 100%. Their selfishness in focusing on their needs before ops feelings is what caused problems, not the polyamory itself. This is a good idea to air out the dirty laundry in a clean way is what not to do. Polyamory without radical honesty just tends to cause hurt feelings, jealousy and resentment. And as we can see, I never knew, that means everyone in the family who's old enough to understand. Adults tend to think of amorous relationships as none of the kids' business, but that's not always entirely true. I highly doubt this is an objective documentary. I'm willing to bet that if original post says something bad in this documentary, it'll either be altered to look better, negated by some sort of BS discrediting comments, or just axed entirely. Or it's a Tiger King situation where it is meant to be salacious and controversial, but the couples don't know that, so the kid would be exactly what they are looking for. Agreed. I don't think polyamory will inherently mess kids up. But any parents who prioritize something else above their kids, and make it clear, risk messing them up. The way original post describes it, they were only ever an afterthought. It also sounds like original post potentially knew more about their parents' sex lives than they probably should have and wanted to know, which can often go along with treating kids as little adults, as opposed to just letting them be kids. Again, it's not about the polyamory, it's about the parents being selfish. No matter what they call the arrangement, it comes down to them putting their sex/dating lives above their child. Obviously NTA, op. Your parents have a lot they need to reflect on right now. Hopefully when they do they'll realize how inappropriately they treated you. Edit. Wow, thanks so much for the gold. I came here to say something similar. As someone who is poly and shifted to that whole my kids were early teens/late adolescents, they knew about it on age-appropriate levels. And my kids always came first, same with any of my partner's kids. I hope the original post does speak on how things could have been different, not about poly being a blanket bad thing, but things that parents could do to take care of them while still being poly. Any parents who prioritize something else above their kids, and make it clear, risk messing them up. Yeah. This isn't a poly thing, this is a crafty parents thing. This reminds me of stories people have about divorced parents prioritizing their dating life over their kids. It kind of makes me sick. This was my first thought as well. It happens when parents die as well. I just read a story of a lady that lost her husband a year ago, and 5 months ago, her new boyfriend moved in. She can't fathom why her 13-year-old daughter is upset all the time and doesn't like the boyfriend just because she's so lucky to have found love again. I get wanting to be happy, but your kid should be your priority. For some reason when you get divorced that thought goes out of your head completely. Either you're so petty that you F over the other parent and make things bad for your kids that way, or you give priority to the new person in your life instead of helping your clearly traumatized kids. If you get divorced, and have kids, your kids are going through it with you, and most people don't get that. I just read a story of a lady that lost her husband a year ago, and 5 months ago, her new boyfriend moved in. Exactly my situation, although I am 31 not 13. My father was in his deathbed and that disgusting person already coddled up my mother and moved in shortly after his passing. I don't want to entertain the thought of it happening before he passed away. I am seriously considering going no contact. This really did not sound like polyamory to me either. I have a couple of friends in polycules, and they handle it as you described. All the adults appropriately prioritize the kids, as their kids and dependent on adults for everything. Kids' birthday parties are times for all the adults to celebrate the kids, they're not adult hookup parties. It's basically just parents, but more of them, which is going well so far. Ops parents are swingers with crafty boundaries, they're selfish people and likely would have been selfish parents even without the effing other people thing. Original post is not the butthole at all for being upset by this. Even not poly parents often have parents, but more of them with parents' best friends who are always around, or siblings that are tight, or business partners that become like family. That can actually be really good for kids, parental figures who aren't parents, as long as the boundaries are clear and the bonus parents are stable and around long-term like family. not whatever original post dealt with. If you're polyamorous, you're in a close relationship. This isn't true. There can and have been polyamory relationships that are open. It's just a matter of respect for the partners you're sharing in the relationship and setting healthy boundaries with regards to who is accepted and what they're given. I'm aware that there are open ones, however, when kids are involved, the only relationships that the kids should be exposed to are the close ones, thus my example. This is because having strangers around kids is effing dangerous. You have no clue if they're abusive to kids, sex offenders, etc. In this case, the parents broke a whole lot of rules of polyamory if they completely disregarded the safety of their kid for their orgasms. Want to bang anonymously while also having a kid? Get a hotel room. They could have had their cake and ate it too, but deliberately chose not to. Pretty sure they meant close as in proximity close, like knowing one another well and being romantically intimate, a part of one another's lives in a way that a monogamous relationship would consider normal. You seem to be confusing it for closed in the sense of being restricted, not allowing those outside of the relationship to directly interact. Also, since I'm commenting, not the butthole seems pretty obvious. Crafty parents that needed a stern wake-up call is what I'm seeing here. They were neglectful, no prancing around the issue here, swingers, poly, whatever. Exactly this. A good friend is poly and it's exactly as you describe. Set people, continual relationships, not just people coming and going. My friend takes their partner's kid to the doctor for crying out loud. NTA, it wasn't your parents' polyamory that effed you up, though it was their bad parenting. They allowed strange adults around you all the time and neglected you when those strangers were around. They put you in potentially dangerous situations by doing so. Having a committed poly partner who was not a stranger and known to you probably would have been fine, but a string of randoms or new people that would seriously mess with any kid. It's pretty much the same as a single mom always bringing her boyfriends around and not putting the kid first. But I've know a lot of poly people who get so into advocacy that they don't care about anyone's emotions that don't fit into their idealized view of what polyamory is supposed to be. Anyone who feels neglected or jealous or railroaded just isn't enlightened enough. If they're trying to bring original post into this propagandistic documentary, it sounds like that might be the situation. Oh, and not the butthole for judgment. That standpoint really baffles me. Isn't the number one priority in polyamory communication? Sad to see. As an actual poly person, yes, communication is key. I have several friends who are poly and who have children, and they only introduce partners who are going to be long-term and only after they know the partners well, the same as any other responsible parent. That just sounds like the emotionally mature way to handle any relationship. My sister was in a monogamous relationship with a woman who really desired a poly relationship and had been in poly relationships prior to meeting my sister. Even though they ultimately split because they had different relationship needs, it was an incredibly healthy relationship because they always communicated freely and compassionately with each other. I was in a poly relationship with some friends with kids. I'd known the family for a few years before we got involved and was comfortable with the kids, enjoyed spending time with them, and their parents were comfortable with me being around them. I can't imagine being a parent and not having this be the standard for your poly relationship. How the hell can you just leave your kid with someone they don't know, and you barely know? My friends are still poly and are very careful to not expose their kids to potential partners. Sure, they might have potential partners over to the house while the kids are there, but it's kept very PG, and they would never leave the kids with them until they were 100% sure that this person was a good match for the family. Also, original post mentioning that some of the partners seem surprised that his parents had kids just screams that his parents are crap poly partners and parents. That's not something you hide from a partner, even if you aren't poly. Jesus Christ. I don't even understand who the target audience is for a doc like that if it's not for someone who wants to steamroll their partner into opening their relationship. My bet is it's a shockumentary where they only collect outrageous examples like ops parents intentionally so the normal people in the audience can point and laugh at them and even use it as evidence that they're wrong. They pretend to be respectful but edit it to make ops parents look insane. Anthony Padilla has someone on his show who got trapped in a shockumentary talk about their side of the experience. I think it was the Other Kin episode. The documentary producer they interviewed on Tiger King was aiming to make a shockumentary before all his footage got burned. You can tell based on how he talked about Joe Exotic, he was crazy, but if I humored him while filming, I'd have a great show so we could all laugh at him. The creators would definitely love Op's interview for that kind of spin. Don't know how good or cathartic it'd be for Op, though. NTA. Really? They would leave complete strangers in the house without them for you to come home to? They made their sex lives front and center and their priority. Any child would resent that. Exactly this. Parents can still have healthy sex lives, but come the F on, there has to be a boundary. Especially with your own children, what Op's parents did is borderline abusive. It's nobody's business what goes on in your bedroom, just make sure you lock the door. NTA Op, don't back down to their gaslighting either. Yeah, tell my dad that. He would bring random women around to F constantly. Never tried to hide it. My little sister was messed up the first time she heard it. He brought home a screamer, and she actually kicked in their bedroom door and told them to shut the F up. I think she was in grade 6 that time. I was already so used to it I told her to just put a pillow over her head. Kicked in the door? Is your sister still a total badass? Haha, yes. She is, and I can't wait to tell her you said this to make her smile. I guess one of the pluses to having an irresponsible butthole for a father is it allowed us to become super independent pretty quick. I, too, am a badass because my father is a crap. Not irresponsible but just an abusive rage monster. My brother and husband seem to appreciate my badassery like you appreciate your sister. When my mom met my stepdad, she used to drag me to his house twice a week and I had to sleep in the downstairs study, which was directly below the master bedroom, on a blow-up mattress and listen to them F all night. I was 14 and after a few months I refused to sleep over his house anymore. My stepdad saw this as me being moody and jealous and he hated me for years because of it. Because my mom couldn't rein in her sex life, it ruined a potential relationship with her husband for me and I had to spend so many nights at home alone as a child. Edit, my first award on Reddit. Thanks. Yeah. NTA. You don't prioritize your sex life at the expense of your child. Yes. The polyamory isn't the problem, the parents prioritizing it over a literal child is the problem. Thank you for watching. If you like our videos, please like them on YouTube. And share them with your friends. Please subscribe to be the first to know about Red Rabbit Reader's new videos. We welcome your comments below. Another of our videos will begin shortly.